covered quite a few different Aquinos cases in the past, and I've generally been pretty impressed with not only the quality of their cases, but the price tag and what you're getting for that money. But I'm gonna be honest, I was not ready for how impressed I was going to be with Aquinos' new flagship case. Let me introduce you to the Aquinos Air Cross. It is a high performance case that specializes in massive air movement to keep your hardware as cold as possible. And if you think you're suffering from deja vu, well, that's because this thing closely resembles the Lian Li LandCool 207 that has received massive praise for its high power cooling performance at a very affordable price tag. Now, it is not uncommon for case manufacturers to mimic the design aspects of other cases, especially when they are as wildly successful as the LandCool 207. And if you don't believe me, just look at the amount of aquarium style PC cases that you can find on places like Amazon and Newegg. It's like swimming in a sea of glass boxes. So as somebody who has built in both the LandCool 207 and now the Air Cross, I've got to say I was pretty blown away at the high level of performance that this thing can dish out. And in today's video, we're going to cover all aspects of this case, as well as some benchmarking results, temperatures, and noise level readings. Because performance is great, but I don't want to hear it all the time. So let's get into it. For the size of the case, this thing is 18.4 inches long, it is 9.4 inches wide, and it is 18.2 inches tall. I know that on video it looks like it is a very large case, but it is pushed closer to the camera and my table is elevated for the video. It's really not a very big case. So it's listed as a mid-tower case, and it's made up of a mixture of steel, plastic, and wood. Now, it's a very minimal amount of wood and plastic, so minimal in fact that the only wood that you're going to find on the case is this one piece down here, and the only plastic on the case is this front panel that hides your intake fans. This case can support ATX, micro ATX, and ITX builds, so you won't have any issue fitting a full-size PC in here. For the case's I/O, it is located up top here, and we get a reset button, 2 USB 3.0 ports, 1 USB 3 Gen 2, and our headphone microphone combo jack. Now, you might be scratching your head wondering where your power button is, because on that I/O, all we have is a reset button. Well, that's because our power button is actually located down here next to our wood panel. I've never seen a bigger power button on a case, and honestly, I'm here for it. As far as the wood is concerned, it's not fake wood, it's actually genuine walnut. Aquinos even gives us this little card here with a wood sample on it and an FSC certification code. I've seen them do this before in cases like the Cypress 7 that we reviewed a while back, and it's a nice touch that they add in so that you know that you're getting a genuine product. Our viewing panel is 4mm thick tempered glass that can be removed toollessly. As a matter of fact, every panel in this case can be removed without the use of any tools. The top, back, and tempered glass panels, they kind of just snap off. We do have some thumb screws in the back here to remove your motherboard shroud here. And for the front panel, you can either rip off the entire panel or you can just push in on this little screen here and you can remove this to access your front fans. For drive bays, we do get one 3.5-inch bay and we get two 2.5-inch bays. Now, this case does come with some included fans. You get two 140mm big boys up here in the front, two 120mm fans down at the bottom of the case that serve as dedicated GPU cooling, and the case does come with an additional 140mm fan that you can add to the back of the case. And that's actually one additional fan over what you get with the LandCool 207. They do not include an exhaust fan in theirs. They do have the two front fans and the two bottom fans. So this back exhaust fan actually doesn't come installed in the case. It's actually included in the supply kit that comes when you buy this case. And the reason they do that is they don't want to impede your ability to add in a 360mm AIO if, liquid cooling was the route that you were going to be taking for your build. If this fan was pre-installed, it's going to make it way more difficult for you to get your cooler inside of here, so they just ship it with it so that you can add your cooler and then add in your fan. Thank goodness I watched somebody else's review on this case, because I never would have known that, because going liquid cooling was never in the cards for the build that I wanted to put inside of this thing. But thankfully, somebody else tried it and failed, and so I could tell you about it so you don't try and fail. Now, obviously, if you wanted to change out any of these fans for any other brand, you absolutely can. I just didn't for my build. Now, for fan sizes, you are, however, stuck with the 140mm intake fans up front and 120mm fans down at the bottom, because they don't have the ability for you to change the size of them. But if you wanted to go with a smaller exhaust fan, you could go with a 120mm fan for the exhaust exhaust, you can fit that in. And for the top of the case, you can put two 140 millimeter fans, or you can put three 120 millimeter fans. Millimeter. You could even run a 280 millimeter AIO up front here if you attach it to the included 140 millimeter fans. It doesn't say that you could do that anywhere, but I absolutely did that with the Landcool 207, and I thought it turned out really great. So don't quote me on that, but I did it, so you could probably do it too. For our graphics card, we can fit up to a 400 millimeter in length card, so you can run basically any card that exists. And we can have a max cooler height of 180 millimeters. So if I had to stretch and find one issue that I do have with this case, it's definitely going to be the lack of dust filters that are on here, because we only get one dust filter, and it's located down at the bottom of the case for our GPU intake fans and our power supply. You have all this perforation down here at the bottom on both the front and the back of the case. Up front, it's perforated. Up top, it's perforated. You've got so much ability for air to move through here, but not a lot of dust filters. And the reason they didn't add them in, I'm sure, is because if you were to add dust filters over this already extremely small perforation, it is going to impede your ability to capture more airflow, and it is also going to increase the noise level that the case is going to have while it is in operation. So if this case was something that you were thinking about picking up for yourself, just know that you are going to see a little bit of dust buildup on the outside of the case, as well as maybe an increased amount of dust, at least at a higher rate, inside of your PC. So you're gonna wanna make sure you're cleaning out your system as often as you think you need to. Now, something that I really do like about this case is the power supply placement being here in the front. They do this so that there is less restriction for the bottom two GPU fans, capturing a high amount of airflow into your graphics card. If you're not new to building computers, and this may seem a little strange to you, but I promise it's actually easier, because when you mount your power supply in this direction, then you have an open view to add and remove cables from the back of the case. And all you have to do is plug in the included power supply cable that is already installed in your case to your power supply, and you're all set. For cable management, they do give you a decent amount of room to work with. They include plenty of Velcro straps and channels for you to do your best job, not getting frustrated while trying to slap your back panel back on. Now, for the build that I went with inside of here, I think I did a pretty decent job of matching the aesthetics of the case, mostly black with a little bit of gold and brown accents to match the wood paneling up front. I think the overall design concept that I went with is pretty much, it's a home run. I think it looks really good. Now, obviously this is not a build showcase video, but I will include a few clips of me putting the system together. It was extremely easy to work inside of this case. Everything fit in really well. There's enough space for you to work in. I had no problems trying to plug in and out anything. It was really, really nice. And if you are interested in any of the parts that I used for this build, I'll put a full parts list down in the description below, as well as links so that you can check them out if that is something that you want to do. But because this is a high performance case, I wanted to pair it with some high power components. So I went with a MSI X870 motherboard, a Ryzen 9 9950X 3D CPU, 32 gigs of 6000 megatransfers per second RAM, and a 5080. For cooler, I went with the Noctua NHD15 Chromax Black. I 100% think this cooler has an insane price tag, but the performance is absolutely wonderful. But I bought it because it's humongous, and I wanted to show you that this case can fit a very beefy CPU cooler in it. For graphics card, I wanted to go with a triple fan and triple slot card so that we could see just how much clearance we would have afterwards, and I think the end result, it honestly looks extremely amazing if I do say so myself. Now, I might be alone in this, but there is one thing about this case that I 100% love so much, and it is the fact that because these fans are sunken down, I have the ability and enough clearance for me to get my hand in here and plug in and unplug things from the bottom ports of my motherboard. Generally, if you're running a case that has the ability to run fans down at the bottom, if you add those fans in, it's almost impossible to plug anything in or unplug anything if you're going to be tweaking anything inside of your build without removing your graphics card or the fans and the graphics card together. So to have the ability to really get my hand in here and work on my PC without having to remove hardware is actually extremely nice. Now, I understand that for most people, that's not something that you're gonna worry about. Once your PC's built, you're probably not gonna be touching anything in there anyways, but as somebody like me who's constantly messing with his computer, It's really nice. Now, when you're deciding which cooler to use, whether you're going with an air cooler or an AIO, typically if you're going with an air cooler, you don't put fans at the top of the case. This is because those fans can siphon away a little bit of airflow from your CPU cooler, which could impact performance. But for me, if you've watched any build that I've ever put together, I'm a sucker for fans. I'm gonna add them in. But I'm also a sucker for fan control. So all my top 3 fans are daisy chained together and they're running on their own fan header, which I have slowed the RPM of the fan down. So it's really not gonna be doing very much. Very minimal impact to CPU cooler performance. It's only providing just a little bit of extra air exhaust for my system. But I will say, if you love this design aspect and you want to copy it in any way, and you decide to buy these top 3 fans, please, for the love of God, don't put your hand in it because it will hurt you. My finger is killing me. Do you know how much it hurts to type with this injury? Anyway, let's look at some performance numbers. For CPU idle temperatures, it averages out to be 45 degrees Celsius. In a time spy run, max CPU temp was 76 degrees Celsius. In gaming, we're getting a max of 72 degrees Celsius. And in Cinebench R23, we received a max CPU temp of 86 degrees Celsius. Now, the 9950 X3D chip inside of here has a max operating temperature of 95 degrees Celsius. So we are well underneath that max operating limit. But let's go ahead and talk about graphics card performance. Under full load in Furmark, max temperature only hit 68 degrees Celsius. In Time Spy, max GPU temp was only 64 degrees Celsius. In Warzone, our GPU maxed out at 62 degrees Celsius and only 63 degrees Celsius in Black Myth Wukong. Now, I am a very curious person and I wanted to see if I ran those exact same stress tests again, but without using the bottom 2 fans that are designed to help bring in air to the graphics card. What kind of temperature difference will we get if I turned those 2 fans off? And the results were pretty impressive. In Furmark, our max temperature increased by 5 degrees Celsius to 73. In Time Spy, we were getting a 4 degrees Celsius increase to 68. Warzone max temperature was up 5 degrees Celsius to 67. And in Black Myth Wukong, we were up 8 degrees Celsius to 70°C. So obviously with the bottom fans on, we're getting much better CPU temps, but even with these fans off, we are at a very safe operating temperature for the hardware inside of this system. Now you have to remember that none of the stuff inside of here, aside from the RAM, is overclocked. So what this test did was just confirm to me that I have an absolute ton of headroom to overclock my GPU and my CPU. We have all the space in the world to really get more performance out of this system. So the performance is absolutely there, but what about noise level? Because nobody wants a loud PC. So with the PC off, my room measures at 33.6 dBA. Now when I turn the system on at idle, it jumps up ever so slightly to 36.1 dBA. At 50% load, we hit 47 dBA, and every fan spinning at 100%, we're getting 51.9 dBA. So operating at 100%, you would think 51.9 has got to be loud, right? Well, for example, a refrigerator hum is on average around 50 dBA, and that's generally pretty quiet unless you have like an old crappy refrigerator. So it's really not that loud, and regardless, your system should not be running 100% graphics card, 100% CPU at all times. You're usually gonna get around that 50% mark if you're just gaming or playing around on your computer. So you're really gonna have a quiet system here. This thing is not loud at all, and it's pretty much dead silent if you're just running it idle. Now, for my personal opinion, I really like this case. I really like the design aspect of it, the premium quality feel of it. I love the performance from it because the performance is absolutely the 100% driving factor for picking this system up. Now, the Lian Li LanCool is 1000% this case's direct competition, and to be completely honest with you, I prefer the design aspects from this case more than I do the LanCool 207. Now, here's the thing though. What's really gonna matter about this case is the price tag that it comes in. The LanCool 207 is insanely popular. Huge creators like Gamers Nexus and stuff like that gave it like the best case of 2024 award. Like, it is a really strong case, and this is a very strong competitor to that case, but the price point is what it's really gonna come down to. Now, right now I can go on Newegg and I can find the LanCool 207 207 for $82. And the Air Cross has a launch price of $79.99. So it actually does come in a little bit cheaper than the Landcool 207. And I really hope that they can keep that price point, because as long as this case can be slightly less expensive than the 207, I think they have an absolute winner in a case here. But obviously I can't predict the future. Maybe this case will be more expensive. Maybe the Landcool 207 will become more expensive. Who knows? Either way, I like it. I think you'd love it. And if you want to check it out, I have links in the description below. See you next time.